Hello! Welcome to this lecture on Chapter 5, The Learning of Motor Skills, prepared by me, Miko Masankay. So, motor skills are essential for everything from daily activities to advanced athletic performance. In this session, we'll explore how we acquire and refine these skills and key principles like practice, feedback, and muscle memory. By understanding motor learning, we can improve how we teach, train, and enhance performance in various fields. So let's get started. So, before we formally start this lesson, let us define first what is learning. So, learning is the process by which people acquire a new capacity to perform a skill. It is inferred from performance observations. It is a relatively stable change in performance resulting from practice or experience. Performance, in other hand, is the qualitative or quantitative assessment of what can be observed during the execution of a skill. So basically, learning refers to a long-term change in a person's ability to execute skill due to practice and experience, whilst performance, on other hand, is the temporary execution of a skill at a given moment. So we have a phrase right over here stating that learning is not and never is observed directly, but rather is inferred from performance observation. So basically, learning is an eternal process that cannot be directly seen, only understood through changes in performance. We can only guess if learning has happened by watching how someone perform a skill over time. Next, the learning performance distinction. It refers to the well-established finding that performance measures during acquisition may mask the true degree of learning that has occurred. So, the problem with this is when we assume that the performance is an accurate reflection of learning, is that such thinking leads to the further assumption that learning is best facilitated when it's accompanied by good performance. So basically, just because someone's performance may look good or bad during practice doesn't necessarily reflect how much they have actually learned. So for the next topic, we have the three types of art measurements. So there are three methods for determining from observation of performance if and the degree to which learning has occurred. These three methods are accusation, retention test, and transfer test. All three methods require repeated observation of performance. It is atypical in motor learning research to use all three methods in combination because each provides different but equally important information on the extent and nature of learning. For simplicity, we can refer to these three types of measurement as art measures. So for the first type of art measurement, accusation, those practice experience of a skill designed to influence the learning of the skill. So basically, accusation refers to direct measurement of performance experiences. The important point to recognize about accusation measurement is that they are measurement of performance rather than of learning. Although not direct measurements of learning, accusation measurement do. However, illustrate important features of learning such as the effect of various performance variable on skill attainment. So for the second type of art measurement is retention. It is the persistent of improvement in the performance of a skill over a period of no practice. It is interpreted as a measure of learning. So basically, this refers to performance measurements conducted subsequent to acquisition trials or observation. They provide sufficient time for any effect of performance variables acting during acquisition to dissipate. And for the third and last type of art measurements, the transfer test. It is a type of retention test in which the object is to measure the amount of learning that can be transferred to a similar but different skill or to the original skill in a new context. It stated that a transfer test measures how effectively a person can transfer the learning of a skill from one condition to another. So, each of the art measures contributes something unique to our understanding of the learning process. For the next topic is assessing learning, a classic motor learning experiment. So to see how these three types of measurement are used in motor learning research, we will describe an important study in the history of motor learning. Two researchers, John Shea and Robin Morgan, conduct the study in 1979, and their findings subsequently influenced the way motor skills are taught in many different settings. So there are two types on how is this taught. So first, the black practice. It is a practice schedule in which the same skill is rehearsed in repetitive fashion. On the other hand, random practice. A practice schedule in which different skills are rehearsed in an unpredictable trial-to-trial order. So basically, black practice involves repeating the same skill multiple times before moving on to another. Unlike random practice, it mixes different skill in an unpredictable order, forcing the brain to adapt and problem solve. While it may feel harder at first, it leads to a better long-term learning and skill transfer to real-life situation. So for our next topic, the shape of learning performance curves. Performance graph. A two-dimensional graph of changes in performance measures over time as a result of practice. It is made up of series of performance observation. Typically, a performance measurement is plotted against a sequence of trials. So we have here the four types of performance curves. So first, the linear performance curve. It is a performance curve in which equal amount of time or number of trials during practice correspond to equal increase in performance measures. So performances improves at a constant rate, meaning steady and consistent progress with practice. Second is the negatively accelerating performance curve. It is a performance curve exhibiting diminished improvement in which performance measures as a function of time or trials of practice. So basically, it is the rapid improvement at first, then slower gains as the skill becomes more refined. This is the most common learning pattern. So for the third performance curve is the positively accelerating performance curve. It is a performance curve exhibiting increasing improvements in performance measures as a function of time or trial of practice. Unlike negatively accelerating performance curve, positively accelerating performance curve is slow progress at the beginning followed by a sudden increase in performance as understanding and coordination improve. These two may be interconnected or similar to each other, but they differ in some ways. So what does performance curves reveal about the nature of learning? So first, it reveals about the law of practice. Improvement in performance continues as long as practice continues, but the rate at which it occurs gradually and predictably diminish over time or number of practice trial. It can be expressed mathematically as a power function. So for the second, it reveals about the monotonic benefits assumption, the notion that learning occurs at the same rate as long as practice continues, though its manifestation in performance decrease at a predictable rate. Lastly, it reveals about the asymptotic nature of learning, or the asymptote, theoretically upper limits to learning that is progressively approached with practice but that is never reached. So next, overlearning. Overlearning is the concept that practice of a newly acquired skill beyond the point of mastery benefits long-term retention of the skill. So, basically, overlearning is practicing a skill beyond the mastery point to improve long-term retention. Next, mastery level, a predetermined performance level established as the goal of practice. So mastery level is the set of performance goal that defines successful skill acquisition. Next, original learning, the amount of practice required to attain a specified level of mastery. So, original learning refers to the practice required to reach the mastery level. Next, the automaticity. Next, the automaticity, the capacity. Next, the automaticity. It is the capacity of an individual to assess and operate on procedural memory without the need for conscious attentional resources when executing well-learned skills. So basically, automaticity allows a person to perform a well-learned skill effortlessly without conscious thought. Lastly is the refresher practice. It is a form of overlearning in which continued practice of a skill is carried out beyond the attainment of the original performance goal in incrementally spaced practice interval as a method of maintaining achieved performance level. So basically, refresher practice is continued practice at spaced intervals to maintain and reinforce the learned skills. So let's move on to our next topic, the transfer of learning. So what is transfer first? Transfer is the influence of practicing one skill on the learning of another skill or of the same skill in a new context. So transfer of learning is the influence of previous learning on the acquisition of new skills. So first, the target skill. The task a person wishes to be able to perform as a result of practice. So target skills is the specific skills a learner aims to develop and perform successfully. So next, positive transfer. When learning one skill positively influences the learning of another skill or of the same skill in a new context. So positive transfer is when past learning helps in acquiring new skill. Just for example, learning tennis improves badminton skills because they are similar and interconnected in some ways. Next, negative transfer. It is when learning one skill negatively influences the learning of another skill or of the same skill in a new context. So basically, negative transfer is when past learning interferes with new skill acquisition. For example, driving on the left side of the road affecting driving on the right. So basically, zero transfer is when previous learning has no effect on a new skill being learned. Just like playing chess, it can't help you play volleyball because they're not similar in some ways and they're different on one another. So now, let's talk about the theories explaining transfer effects. So for our first theory is the identical elements theory. It is the theory that transfer is positively related to the number of elements that two skills share in common. For the second theory is the transfer appropriate processing theory. It is the theory that transfer between skills is positively related to similarities in required mental operation shared by the skill. So for the last topic that we're going to tackle in this lesson is the learning from play to deliberate practice. So we have deliberate practice and play. First, deliberate practice. It is a practice that is effortful, highly structured and organized, and directed toward extrinsic goal and rewards. So basically, deliberate practice is a structured, goal-oriented practice focused on improving specific skill through repetition, feedback, and challenge. It requires effort and is designed for skill mastery. So lastly, we have play. So play is an activity which is spontaneous, intrinsically motivated, enjoyable, and imaginative, and not pursued for any external rewards or goal. So basically, play is unstructured, enjoyable activity driven by curiosity and creativity, without specific performance goal. While it can aid learning, it lacks the focus on intent deliberate practice. So, this is where we end our lesson. So to conclude about all the topics that we have tackled about on this chapter 5, the learning of motor skills, is that skill development relies on effective practice methods, including deliberate practice for mastery and play for creativity. Understanding concepts like overlearning, transfer of learning, and performance curves help improve long-term retention and adaptability. With the right approach, learning becomes more efficient and lasting. So, I hope you learned something about the video presentation that I made. Thank you.